Welcome. And before we start, I would like you guys to please see the box where your face is in. And for those of us who remember the Brady Bunch, these Zooms always remind me of the Brady Bunch. So if you hover in that box, in the top right, there's an ellipsis, which is those 3 dots next to mute. And I'd ask you to just click on that. And if you scroll down that menu, it'll say rename. And if you could just put your name, the league that you're from, and your pronouns, that would be great. All right. And this is being recorded. I'm going to get started. Can you all see my screen?
Marla, I can't, my ellipses are at the bottom. And when I click, I don't get.
That's okay. If you have trouble, don't worry about it.
Maria, I don't see your screen.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
No.
I don't know if I'm, there we go. Do you see it now?
There we go. I do.
Yay, awesome. Well, welcome everybody. This is very exciting. This is my first statewide webinar. Thank you for spending a Thursday evening with us at the League of Women Voters, Wisconsin. Tonight's conversation is called Empathy on Purpose, a look into implicit bias and microaggressions. Hello, friends, I'm Maria. And I'm the League of Women Voters, DEI, which stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Senior Specialist. And this flag here, this flag here on the left, this is one of our logos. This is like the progressive flag. So if you notice, it has pride colors, transgender colors on the left, and then the black and brown are like for BIPOC, which I'm a part of the BIPOC community. My pronouns are she, hers. And I like to start with this because the reason I didn't know what pronouns were until a few years ago. And I was like, what is this? What's going on? And really what it shows is to those in the LGBTQIA+ community that like, I see you. And I'm a friendly face and I accept you. And so really that's what it means. And I'm a part of the League of Women Voters, Ozaukee County, and I'm a DEI committee member there. Ozaukee County is the county directly north of Milwaukee. Okay, I'd like to start with community standards for tonight. I like to think of it as the making and keeping of a safe space. So first of all, if your internet connection is unstable, because we have quite a large registration tonight, please turn your video off because I'll be streaming videos and we need all the bandwidth we can get. And also, if you need to attend to something else, by all means. I have 3 kids, a dog, and 2 bunnies, and usually half the neighborhood over my house. So I totally understand. Take a bio break whenever you need to, and this will be recorded. But please just turn your video off to limit distractions. If you have any questions for this speaker, me, please hold off asking them until the designated question and answer time at the end. And we will be doing, so my presentation style is very interactive. And so truth be told, I was like a little intimidated by a webinar format because I like sitting at a table with people and having a discussion. So to accomplish this the best I knew how, we do have some polls and some some answer time. I'll ask some questions, and if you feel comfortable raising your hand and answering, if not, you could put it in the chat. But you would click on the raise hand icon. And if you need to know how to use that, you may chat Delaney, who is our co-host tonight. Please stay muted until you are recognized to speak. And lastly, I like to always say, keep an open heart and mind. Okay. And if you know me or follow me on social media, I love quotes. So here's the first one of the night. It is not hard at all to understand a person. It's only hard to listen without bias. Chris Jam. We're going to talk about learning our biases.
Our brain is hardwired to trust what's familiar and be suspicious of what's unfamiliar. It's a basic survival instinct that's helped keep us safe for thousands of years. Don't attend church. Vote for the other candidate. Don't eat meat. Have tattoos.
Sorting people into groups. Was there a little them versus us happening? It can happen unconsciously.
Okay, and next, Delaney's going to launch our first poll. Or actually, maybe I think I might be able to. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Do you guys have access to this? It's the first time I'm doing this, y'all. All right, it looks like people are responding. Did you feel the them versus us, just like she asked at the end? We'll close this poll in just a few seconds. And if you don't know how to do it, it's okay. Yeah.
We weren't able to hear it. I don't think you're sharing the sound on your video. When you share a screen, you got to optimize the sound. So we weren't able to hear the sound other than what was coming out of your speakers.
Oh, okay. Oh, share sound.
Yes.
Aha, we're going to watch this movie again then. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thanks.
Our brain is hardwired to trust what's familiar and be suspicious of what's unfamiliar. It's a basic survival instinct that's helped keep us safe for thousands of years.
We unconsciously sort things into familiar versus unfamiliar, same versus different, them versus us. Here's a test. How do you feel about people who own a handgun?
Don't attend church.
Vote for the other candidate.
Are on welfare.
Don't eat meat.
Have tattoos.
Don't believe in marriage.
Drive an electric car.
Didn't go to college.
Don't speak English.
Curse.
Are over 60.
Are disabled.
Drive the speed limit.
Love cats.
Love dogs. Can you feel your brain sorting people into groups? Was there a little them versus us happening? It can happen unconsciously.
Awesome. Now we'll launch the poll again. It's still launched, so feel free to click in there. And if you don't know how to use the poll, that's okay. All right, I'm going to end the poll. Looks like, whoa, it's still going. Okay, I'll give you another couple seconds. 3, 2, 1. All right, looks like 87% felt the them versus us. Excellent. Okay, onward. I like using lots of videos.
Are you seriously considering her as a candidate?
Just don't trust
She's a woman.
She's a woman.
This is a man's job.
She's clearly not educated.
Really? Does she even speak English?
That's not me. I'm not like that. I'm not like that. You call it an honest mistake. Science calls it a blind spot. Our unconscious mind is a mysterious and powerful thing. It makes 90% of our decisions without us even knowing it. Our brains are overloaded with 11 million pieces of information every second. Yet we can only process about 40 of them. So we're wired to make cognitive shortcuts, using past experiences to make assumptions. And you know what happens when we assume. Our unconscious mind can put us on autopilot, determining where we sit, who we eat lunch with, who we turn to for advice, and who we choose to offer a helping hand. Living our lives with blind spots can put us in a tunnel. Same point of view, same decisions, same outcomes. We can find ourselves trapped in the land of snap judgments and misconceptions. We've all been on both the giving and receiving end of blind spots. Think about it. Who's talented? Who's able? Who can I trust? Who belongs? We've all been there. Blind spots are part of the human condition. Our choices have consequences for us and the people we interact with. By accepting that blind spots exist, we can stop. Imagine what possibilities exist if we could do it all over again. Different perspectives, inclusive relationships, diverse networks, better outcomes, seeing people for who they really are. People like you with unlimited potential. We all have blind spots. Once you accept that you have them, you can choose to do something about it. It's time to check your blind spots and focus on what's possible.
Awesome. So, you know, I love this video and I like to point this out quite often. I have personally, I have a background in psychology, neuropsychology, and I want this to feel like a non-judgmental space. Here's the thing, we will always have biases, and it's just the neurological way our brain is wired. Again, he said we encounter 11 million pieces of information simultaneously as like every moment. And our brain is only cognizant or conscious of 40. And so it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like, okay, it's a way of surviving so we can make sense of the world and move forward in our lives. So if it takes us, if we're only encountering 40 pieces of information simultaneously to go through the world, could you imagine 11 million? We wouldn't be able to function. And so now there is a choice. I like to think of who here uses filters, like for social media, for pictures, like on your iPhone. And I do like to think of these biases as filters. And that is like a place where we can like shift, right? And it's like becoming aware of the filters that are more intentional about our filters, and the filters we choose to use, the filters we choose not to use intentionally. We're gonna go to our next poll. There we go. Okay. Experts say that we all have blind spots, which can lead to snap judgments. Have you ever found yourself writing off or rationalizing a snap judgment as an honest mistake? Our poll is live. Give you 10 seconds. Three, two, one. Okay, wow, 94% said yes. Okay, very telling. Okay, and I have another question for you guys. And this is one where you can raise your hand and then and unmute, and Delaney will call on you. Here's the next question based on this video. What lesson, we look at this question, did you ever find yourself writing off or rationalizing a snap judgment as an honest mistake? For those of you who said yes, 94% of you, what lesson did you learn from this experience? if you don't want to raise your hand and share, you can also just throw it in the chat. Oh, Betty.
Yes, hi, thank you. What I was going to say is I think you just have to learn when you've done something like that to step back and rethink and say, was that what I really thought I was doing? Was that my real intention? And then go, forward from there. So, I mean, I think we all do it. 94% of us said we did. And so I think it's just a natural thing. And because we all have, like you said, preconceived ideas, and we just have to learn how to go through that. We have to stop and think, just like somebody wrote down there.
Oh, thank you so much for being brave and sharing, Betty. This is the second day in a row I get to see Betty. We were on a call yesterday.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Slow down and think, says Dorothy, Dean of Milwaukee County League. Janie said, being aware that what we do, it gives us pause to reflect on it. Well, we're done with the polls. So, and we're going to move on to the next spot. Okay, so this is where we bring in the league, right? So a few years ago, we've always had our nonpartisan policy that we hold so to the letter of the law. It's near and dear to us. We all understand it. We understand why. About 5 years ago, roughly, National did a survey and a demographic survey, just like we do. And by the way, I'll shamelessly plug that I'll be sending that to all of you February 1st. So be on the lookout for that. And we're going to have prizes and you'll be put in a drawing if you complete it. But they did a demographic survey to really measure, as we're a database group of men and women, to discover what they already knew, that we're predominantly older, white, wealthy, graduate school educated women. And so they were like, wow. And kind of out of this, they started thinking about DEI. And they ended up creating this DEI policy. This is the only other policy that we have, and this is held as equal to the League of Women Voters U.S. nonpartisan policy. So what does this mean? It means that local leagues across the U.S. are required to adopt and implement this policy, and that we're encouraged to further adopt and implement our own. And I could not be more proud of our League of Women Voters DEI policy. And would anybody like to volunteer to read this? And if not, I will.
Maria, it's Rhonda Lidner here. I'm a former language arts teacher, so I'm happy to help you out and give you a little bit of break.
Awesome. Rhonda lives in my county, and she is a powerhouse in this nonpartisan work. Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you, Maria. The $10 I promised you is in the mail. League of Women Voters is an organization fully committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion in principle and in practice. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are central to the organization's current and future success in engaging all individuals, households, communities, and policymakers in creating a more perfect democracy. The League of Women Voters is an organization fully committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion in principle and in practice. There shall be no barriers to full participation in this organization on the basis of gender, gender identity, ethnicity, race, Native or Indigenous origin, age, generation, sexual orientation, culture, religion, belief system, marital status, parental status, socioeconomic status, language, accent, ability status, mental health, educational level or background, geography, nationality, work style, work experience, job role function, thinking style, personality type, physical appearance, political perspective or affiliation, and or any other characteristic that can be identified as recognizing or illustrating diversity. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are central to the organization's current and future success in engaging all individuals, households, communities, and policymakers in creating a more perfect democracy.
Thank you, Rhonda. And isn't that incredible? There were things in there that I never even thought about, like work style or thinking style. Just it's so comprehensive, and it really just kind of gets you thinking, right? Wow, there are so many ways that we can experience diversity, or we can be diverse as individuals. So what does this mean? It means that we are required to change. And change is hard. It can be. So many of you may have seen this awesome slide from National. It was in a DEI presentation last year, and on intersectionality. And so the definition of what intersectionality is, it considers the unique facets of each individual, like facets of a diamond, and how we ensure that each demographic of our community has been reached out to, heard, and has an opportunity to give input and lead. And this is the path to equity and inclusivity. So I want you all to take a look. So let's start in the middle of this wheel. So, you know, a lot of times we hear in the league, we're a whole bunch of older, you know, white ladies, you know what I mean? And while that's true to an extent, even within that group, we are very diverse. We all have an age. We all have a sexual orientation or identity. We all have an ethnicity. We all have a race, a gender. We all have certain physical qualities or abilities or disabilities. We all have our own communication style, marital status, military experience or not. If we're native born, non-native born, religious beliefs, socioeconomic status, our geographical location, we all have a parental status. We all have an educational status. We all have a work background. We all have our own beliefs. And so when we look at diversity, I encourage us all to think in terms of all of these things, right? And so in some ways we are, you know, alike. In so many ways, there are so many ways that make us different and unique. Okay, so working from the inside out. Self-growth is intentional. This regularly involves setting time aside for engaging uncomfortable ideas and facts through learning and discussion, becoming actively aware of the filters you choose to apply, like we talked about in that blind spots video, and the ones that you don't. It includes self-reflection of your views of traditional roles and values, like the roles and values you grew up with, your biases, perceptions, and expectations of those who differ from you, speech, gestures, practices, and traditions you and those closest to you use, and the way people who are different from you are portrayed on TV, social media, the news, and to whom issues reported on are pertinent to. Okay. Another quote. The highest form of knowledge is empathy, for it requires us to suspend our egos and live in another's world. Plato. And as my new friend, Ken, who frequents the coffee shop I work out of, he said, Plato is well ahead of his time. And I agree, he really was. So I want you to like disregard the becoming anti-racist in the middle, because it came from this book titled that. I would like to look at this in a different way. Working from the inside out, becoming less biased. So instead of becoming anti-racist, I'd like to encourage us tonight to be thinking about becoming less biased. Because each of us has a personal responsibility to not act in a discriminatory way, whether consciously or unconsciously, right? Does it mean that we'll ever arrive? Not fully, but we do have a personal responsibility. And I just thought this was a really cool diagram kind of depicting growth. I'll give you a second to look at that. Okay.
People say that if you want something done well, you should do it yourself. Or at the very least, find someone just like you to do it. Okay, maybe they don't say that last part, but that's often what we do. All thanks to similarity bias. Similarity bias happens when we're drawn towards people who seem familiar or remind us of ourselves. Which is okay if you're casting for the role of twin, but not okay if you need to work with others to accomplish a goal. So why do we think like this? Well, experts tell us it's how we've evolved. Our early ancestors had to learn how to survive, to assess quickly between friend or foe. As generations passed down their culture's survival techniques, they also shared their blind spots. And we're still applying these old in-group and out-group biases to our social networks today. Picture your neighbors, your friends, your closest colleagues. Chances are the people in your inner circle are pretty similar to you. Let's test this idea. Imagine you're at a networking event. You quickly scan the room to see who's there. Which group would you gravitate towards? Would it be this one? Or this one? Or how about this one? Did you instantly recognize the group you'd be most comfortable with? Studies show we often gravitate towards people who we think are similar to us, based on shared social identities. If this dynamic of similarity bias naturally happens at networking events, what might that mean in workplaces? Research has shown that when supervisors rate their subordinates, the more similar the parties are, the higher the rating the supervisor tends to give. Another study showed that interviewers prefer candidates who have similar demographics or attitudes to their own. Similarity bias means you may be unintentionally giving opportunities to others based on something going on in your unconscious mind. Getting past similarity bias is important because it's the right thing to do and it's the smart thing to do. According to a survey by PwC, a majority of directors believe diversity positively impacts their board and company, and many studies have shown that diverse teams perform better. Companies with the highest levels of racial diversity brought in nearly 15 times more sales revenue than those with the lowest levels. And in the S&P 1500, female representation in top management was found to improve performance in firms focused on the strategy of innovation. Bottom line, diversity is good for people, for businesses, and for society. So how can we outsmart our unconscious mind? How can we get past similarity bias to build more inclusive environments? First, you can examine your network. Who's in it? Who's not? Don't unintentionally exclude people who aren't like you. Open the door to your inner circle. Invite others with different experiences and perspectives in. You can learn a lot from them. And encourage ideas. It's one thing to give someone a seat at the table. It's another to give them a voice. You'll be amazed at how your own perspective might change. You know, I see a lot of myself in you, but I think it's time for something different.
Okay. So I have a question for you all. How can you challenge or change potential societal stereotypes of who may be right for a particular role within your local league? I'll read that again. How can you challenge or change, I'll shorten it to, how can you challenge or change stereotypes of who may be right for a particular role within your league? Who would like to answer? Again, if you don't want to raise your hand and talk on the camera, or you don't have to turn your video on, or you could put it in the chat. Wendy.
One thing we've been talking a lot about is trying to find a good fit for somebody based on their preferences and their skills and what they're interested in and what they have time for, versus trying to fit somebody into a role. So I think that's a good way to be more open to what somebody might have talents or that might be unexpected, and be a little more creative about it.
I don't know who's like drawing all over the screen. and I'm really not sure how to fix it, but just whoever's doing that, I think it's gonna like go over the whole presentation. Delaney, if you know how to do this, like, oh, clear all drawings. I figured it out. Awesome. So just be aware, like that pencil, it looks like it lets you draw. So let's try not to do that. Okay, cool. Somebody else had their hand raised. Unless it was okay. There's some, perhaps Jane Banning, Jane is the DEI coordinator in the Northwoods, perhaps simply ask questions. Who else needs to be here? How can we open our communities and boards? Anybody else? I think that's good. Awesome. Onward.
People say that if you want something done well.
There we go. So it's so funny, Jane, that you mentioned that, because who else is in your community? I want us just to pause and take a look at all the pictures and really think about your local league. Okay. Oops, hold on one second. So, okay, so sometimes people get nervous when they see this part of the presentation, because I always talk about self-care and breathing. And before I was in nonpartisan politics, I was in partisan politics. And regardless of which side of politics that you're in, this is heavy work, right? And we're taking our free time to fight for causes that we believe in. Free time where we could be, relaxing or doing other things. But for some of us, this is relaxing. But at the same time, again, it can be heavy and it can be a lot, especially, given that we're just a little bit outside of the election, we can all understand that. And so and I'm also a licensed school psychologist. I'm still licensed. I work with kids in Title I predominantly for years and years. And something that breathing does, and some of you who practice yoga, you would understand this as well. It calms your nervous system down. It gives oxygen to your blood, and it just helps center you. And so a lot of us don't have a lot of time just to go for a 5-mile run or, or watch a movie. But breathing is something that we can do. And so what I'd like you to do is, this is from Calm. They have an app, but there's lots of these on YouTube that you can, it's just a way where you look at it and it'll tell you when to breathe in and breathe out. And you can turn your camera off, but like, you don't have to close your eyes because you're going to be looking at the screen. But I'd like to do this together. And this is something I do with my students. And the more, one other thing, the more you practice this, like the quicker you can calm yourself down. And so I had students that we would practice breathing with, and they would end up in jail or alternative school, and they were able to calm down behind glass. And so, I mean, there's something really powerful about it. So here we go. Thank you for being brave to do that with me. Oops, there we go. Okay, now if you have a piece of paper and a pen, or if not, you don't have to, but we're gonna take a minute to do a little soul searching. We're gonna think about what Jane mentioned and what was on that slide. Examine your local league. And let's think about who's in it and who's not. The other one is, the other questions after that are 3 actions I will commit to regarding this. We'll take 1 minute. Okay, 10 more seconds. All right. So with that, I'm going to encourage you to open the door to your inner circle. Invite others with different experiences and perspectives in, and support their voices. Okay. Here's our next film.
Ew, get off of me.
Sophie, go to little girl's room for a minute, okay?
There's going to be some things that you're going to be able to get that other people in the office don't get. One of them, gym membership.
You want me to lose weight?
No, I don't want you to.
Oye, sabrosura. You want to have some ice cream with my friend of me?
Get lost, greaseball.
Microaggressions are along a continuum from being very deliberate and conscious to being outside one's conscious behavior. We identified 3 types of microaggressions. Microassaults, which are very similar to old-fashioned racism.
Your kind don't understand English. My kind?
The other types of microaggressions are more insidious, hidden, subtle, and the second type is a micro-insult. A couple of color comes into a restaurant to be seated. They're seated in a more undesirable place than a white couple who might be coming in.
Did you see any white people in there waiting an hour and 32 minutes for a plate of spaghetti? Huh? And how many cups of coffee did we get?
You don't drink coffee, and I didn't want any.
Man, that woman in there poured cup after cup to every single white person around us. But did she even ask you if you wanted any?
A micro-invalidation assails their racial identity and self-esteem. Let's say African Americans, they are dangerous and criminal.
You see that?
Right, she's cold.
She got colder as soon as she saw us, though.
Oh, man, come on, don't stop.
Man, look around you, man. You couldn't find a whiter, safer, or better lit part of this city right now.
There can be racial microaggressions, sexual orientation microaggressions, disability microaggressions, and gender microaggressions. catcalls, staring at a woman's breasts or legs. It's a microaggression because it fulfills the theme of what we call sexual objectification.
I love the fact that you're a grandmother.
Oh, God!
You are! You're a hot grandma!
Oh, my God!
Environmental microaggressions are a hostile and invalidating climate. If you choose to stay, you will be uncomfortable.
Yo, Mook! Mookie!
What?
Come you got no brothers up on the wall?
Man, ask Sal, right?
Hey, Sal, how come you got no brothers up on the wall here?
You want brothers on the wall? Get your own place. You can do what you want to do.
Making trouble? Yeah, I'm a troublemaker. I'm making trouble.
Just coming in here looking for trouble. Suppose I busted your head.
Microaggressions are cumulative, and any one may represent the feather that breaks a camel's back.
Near the bush. You said you were going to get Jose to do it.
He here garden and why you don't feeling?
Lucy, you know I don't speak Mexican.
I'm not a Mexican.
How unpopular Vietnam was. I'm not Vietnamese, I'm American.
What, you think I'm gay? Aren't you? What's the matter with you? Do I look gay to you? Do I look gay to you?
You're a good-looking man.
Thank you.
Very pretty. Real soft, delicate features. They're real feminine, you know, which is good for me because that would be a simple sort of transition, you know what I'm saying? Maybe throw a little rouge on you, tuck your sack back, you gay.
I love movies. I hope you guys enjoyed that, you movie watchers out there. So I don't know if you guys have heard the term allyship. We're gonna look at these definitions really quickly right now. An ally is a term used for people who support a social group other than their own by acknowledging disadvantage and oppression and taking action on behalf of others. Allyship is using your position of privilege to help people from one or more marginalized groups you don't identify with. And so look, you know, what's really interesting is looking at that wheel of intersectionality, some things that you might not know about me, but I have 7 autoimmune diseases. So I have invisible disabilities, right? And so other things you might not know is I'm 2nd generation Pakistani on my dad's side. And you just never know a person just by looking at them. My name is Maria, but I'm Asian. And so, you know, but I do have other forms of privilege. I'm highly educated. I'm in a higher socioeconomic bracket. And, you know, and so, you know, while I might be in the marginalized groups in some aspects of me, I'm not in others. And so it's really interesting to kind of shift your mindset in this way, right? On to the next slide.
What if the power of connection was the key to healing our nation's divide? At its core, connection is a psychological need that allows us to feel a sense of togetherness through shared experiences. And if we want to get started with building connection, it first starts with diversifying our circles. First, I want you to take inventory of the people that you are connected to. Does everyone look like you and think like you and vote like you? When my husband was in the Army, he reported to formation at 5:50 a.m. for roll call to see who was present and
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was checking the chat and it kind of went backwards.
What if?
Hold on. We can get a little further along. Sorry about that.
Present
Guys.
and accounted for. Let's pretend that it's 5:50 a.m. Take a look down your row. Who is standing next to you? Who's in your squad? And then I want you to take a look around the room and tell me who is noticeably absent. From there, I want to offer you 3 ways that you can begin to build a more diverse community. 1, look for opportunities to support and advocate for marginalized groups, which not only includes people of color, but people with disabilities and our veterans. There are lots of organizations that could use a few extra volunteers. 2, you gotta speak up. Use your voice, your power, and your privilege to help advance the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion in your communities of influence. This is work that we simply cannot do alone. And 3, learn more about the systems of oppression. And this can be done from the comfort of your own home by watching documentaries or reading books about race and privilege in America. Don't be afraid to challenge your own beliefs. And for some of you, I realize that this short list might seem intimidating. So do what makes sense for you, even if that includes inviting a neighbor of a different background over for dinner. And as we build these small, meaningful connections and be more intentional about our everyday interactions, little by little, we can begin a journey to eliminating microaggressions and ultimately destroying systems of oppression. And let's be clear, the need for authentic connections does not remove the need for accountability. Instead, it invites us in and calls on us to be more courageous as we hold ourselves and each other to a higher standard. And it also allows us to not only
Oh, that was the clip. So I hope that gave you some food for thought. So next we're going to talk about growing as an ally. So sometimes people of underrepresented communities are asked to educate people with privilege about issues that the person from a marginalized community has lived with and thought about for their whole entire lives. This can be very psychologically and emotionally exhausting for a person to then have to care about the person with privileges feelings and to take those extra efforts so that they can learn something that they could have learned throughout their life. So all that being said is being an ally requires our own internal work with intention. Now, the person with marginalized identities may provide you with resources, but remember, it's not their responsibility to educate you or me. If you are a person with privileged identities and you want to be a true ally, maybe you do have to do that homework. Maybe you do have to, maybe I have to engage in those uncomfortable emotions because we know it's our job and responsibility to have those conversations so that others won't have to have those for you. Okay, so we heard from Daryl Wing Sue in the other video, and he is kind of like, he has spearheaded the study of microaggressions from Columbia University. And he describes microaggressions as a death by 1,000 cuts. Psychologists refer to everyday slights or indignities experienced by people of color as a death by 1,000 cuts. Far from being harmless and benign, microaggressions have a macro impact on targets. A whole body of research supports this conclusion. They increase stress in the lives of people of color, lower emotional well-being, increase depression and negative feelings, assail the mental health of recipients, impede learning and problem solving, impair employee performance, and take a heavy toll on the physical well-being of targets. Equally important are findings that microaggressions lower the standard of living of people of color, and it creates inequities in employment, education, and healthcare. And if somebody has experienced microaggressions, or if somebody would like to share, and if not, I can do it. Would anybody like to share one that they've experienced or they've witnessed towards somebody?
I know.
Brigitte.
I did many times, but it doesn't seem like it because after all, I am white, right? But I do have an accent and I am from a different country. And when we first moved in the neighborhood many, many years ago, I had my neighbors over for coffee and we got to know them. And that's the neighbor then after a while said, you know what? It's amazing. You guys are real good people being foreigners and all that. And that made me realize right away, even so one is a naturalized citizen, you don't quite measure up to the native born ones. And there's different occurrences throughout when I was teaching how students would say something until they get to know you. Now, again, once they get to know you, they don't see that anymore. But it is there. And imagine then what it feels like, what I experienced, who doesn't look any different than everyone else most of the time in my town. Imagine how hard it has to be for someone who doesn't look exactly the same. I mean, that's why I truly, when I read this, it hits me because I can understand it, how if you are a person of color, you're going to feel it twice as so much. Or that video we saw, these young men who were talking about it when nobody surfed on them. And I know some people always say, oh, they're just overreacting. They're just looking at them. No, it's the truth. It is. I did survey when I was still teaching about, because I was a history teacher. And so we had a unit on culture. And I always had, for my Asian studies class, I always asked 20 questions in the beginning of the semester class about biases and what they experienced. Is there any prejudice around in our town and whatever? And 99.9% of my white students said there was no racism, there was no bias in the community. 100% of my Hmong students said there is. Okay.
Thank you for sharing. That was really powerful. For me, I live in a community. I live a mile from the Milwaukee County border, and I've lived in 10 cities in 7 states, and I have not experienced the racism that I've experienced living here since I lived in East Texas, like a mile from about an hour from the Louisiana-Texas border. And so my friends who are Black and in this work in Milwaukee, they do point out to me that I have the privilege of turning lighter in the winter, which it's absolutely right. But in the summer, I'm, half Arab. And so I turn very dark. And I'm an avid gardener, like I know many of us in the league are. And I'm also a houseplant mama. In fact, you could probably see a few of them in the background. And so when I go to a garden store in the summer, it is very unlikely that I won't be stopped by somebody. I would say about 80% of the time that I step in a store, and sometimes I'm even with my kids, I'm usually wear workout clothes. I'm not wearing, a collared shirt, and I certainly don't have a name tag with Maria, or else it would have been worse. But people regularly ask me, oh, well, could you tell me where, the begonias are? Or could you help me lift this bag of soil? And it just adds up. And this is like the death by 1,000 cuts. And so at first, when we moved here, like 3 years ago, right before the pandemic, I would just be helpful and, move from the South. Oh, I think it's over there. Have a great day. And now I'm just like, I don't work here. And not that there's anything wrong with working there. I would love to work at Stein's or work at one of these garden centers because I love plants, but I don't. And it's just the assumption. Sometimes people are aggressive about it. And it's just an example of microaggression that I face very regularly in my community. Okay, the impact of microaggressions. The cumulative effect of microaggressions can be more significant and more damaging than overt acts of prejudice. So we're going to take a look at this as an example. This is totally taken from a website, and they have several of these. I just chose two. I'm looking at gender-related microaggressions and disability-related microaggressions today. So I'm going to just read a couple of these. So gender-related microaggressions, we did see some of those in that movie clip. Let's see, calling a woman love or sweetheart, commenting on a woman's body shape, whether it's considered a positive or negative comment. When a woman is confident and assertive, accusing her of being too aggressive or challenging, whereas men who behave in a similar manner are considered competent leaders. Focusing attention and praise on someone's appearance or attractiveness rather than their skills and knowledge. Senior men assuming seniority automatically in meetings and in teams. Those are just some examples. And we're going to look at ability-related microaggressions. Insisting that people behave in neurotypical ways, like maintaining eye contact and considering them to be rude if they don't. Not providing additional support or reasonable adjustments or accommodations as requested, so individuals aren't able to fully participate, including in educational settings. Otherization, seeing having a disability as abnormal and denying them equal access to life experience. So the experience, microaggressions add up. No matter how confident people from marginalized or underrepresented communities feel about their identities, microaggressions create unsafe spaces and make individuals feel like perpetual outsiders. Mira Yang. Now we're going to get into some of the negative impacts of discrimination. I mean, there were so many, like I just put it under a broader term because some of these pertain to race, some of these pertain to gender, microaggressions. So I just put it under all of them under a larger umbrella of discrimination. And so we're going to kind of go through these topically. Poor physical health, high blood pressure, cardiovascular diseases, premature death, gastrointestinal issues, migraines, autoimmune disorders, mental illness, severe shock, insomnia. And all the references are cited, they're in the last slide of this presentation, so you can look them up. Financial, higher levels of poverty, additional medical costs, avoiding public transportation, and that's added cost to them. Negative impact on standard of living via unequal wages, difficulty gaining employment, higher interest rates, inability to secure loans, challenges securing housing, and they tend to underperform because of their stress or depression. Psychological. This is a long one. And some of these are just some that I know from being licensed as on a board of the Board of Psychology. Anxiety, depression, anger, fear, sadness, low self-esteem, self-harm, suicide, decreased focus, decreased attention, substance misuse, substance abuse, post-traumatic stress disorder, chronic post-traumatic stress disorder. Chronic post-traumatic stress disorder it's an emerging field. And so people who have gone through like years of trauma, basically it breaks their memory moving forward. It's like, it's not just repressed memories for terrible things that have happened. It's also struggles with short-term memory, and also they might have that repression moving into the future, and there's no treatment for it right now. Body image dissatisfaction, eating disorders. And also what we know from the field of psychology is, you know, a lot of times it's kind of like the autoimmune disorders, certain more medical, physical disorders act like this too, where stress triggers so like we might be biologically predisposed or have a genetic propensity for familial tendency towards bipolar disorder, personality disorder, schizophrenia, or other psychotic disorders, but they are triggered by stress. And so so this is pretty comprehensive. So it's important. Social, hypervigilance, skepticism. Hypervigilance means like you're on alert all the time. Like you can't turn you're like kind of like fight or flight. Skepticism or suspiciousness towards a majority group, rage and anger, adaptation to adversity, like constantly using functional survival skills, a lack of confidence in occupying public spaces, fear of engaging with strangers or new groups, disengage from interests, social withdrawal and isolation, mistrust, hyper-awareness of difference, feeling powerless, and forced compliance. So again, we're going to talk about self-care. Caring for myself is not self-indulgent, it is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. Audre Lorde, I have two of her quotes in this presentation. Another thing I really want to point out, especially because I've always worked in the field of disabilities or abilities, and I have them myself, and I have a son with special needs, a half brother who's very much on the autism spectrum. You know, none of us are immune from disability. And one of the statistics out there, which many of us feels like a gross misunderrepresentation, but you know, 1 out of 5 people will experience a disability at some point in their life. And we all know people who've lost jobs, who have gone bankrupt, had a house fire, and like also financial situations can come and go. So I think that's a way to really develop empathy. It's just to kind of remind ourselves of that. Okay, on to the next.
Have you ever been nervous to have a crucial conversation? Feeling kind of anxious because you know you need to go talk to someone about something and you're just not really sure how to say it. You don't want it to blow up in your face. You don't want them to get defensive or angry or sad. And you're thinking, how do I do this? Well, here's my tip. Say that. Start the conversation with that. Come to the conversation and say, hey, I have something really important to talk about. And honestly, I'm pretty worried about it because I care about you and I care about this, and I'm not sure I know how to do it in a way that's going to be safe for everyone. So can you help me with that? Because I really want this to go well. Being transparent, being vulnerable about, I don't know how to have this conversation, but I want to, that is one of the most powerful ways you can communicate a good intent, creating safety for yourself and others to stumble through a conversation. If people know that your intent is good, if people know that your intent is to have a conversation in a way that works for them, they will allow you a lot of fumbles. I've said some pretty stupid things and in conversations, and thankfully the other person has given me a pass because they knew that I was trying and that I cared about them. So that's my tip. When you're feeling nervous, anxious, and worried about having a conversation, start the conversation with, I'm feeling worried and nervous and anxious about this because it matters, and so do you.
I thought that was awesome. So her tips are: be transparent, express your concerns, be vulnerable to create good intent, and transparency to convey safety. Another thing that I like to use, another method is called the sandwich technique. So start with something good, something that's, more, I don't want to say negative or more like controversial, and then end on a positive. And so, because it's not about being judgmental, it's about learning and growing together. And so I think it's just a good way to, I really like the way she explained it. We want to create these safe spaces. so people can feel like they can be vulnerable and learn, not judge, not like, oh, I can't believe you said that. Who are you? Were you to say that, you know? Here's the other Audre Lorde quote. When we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard nor welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is still better to speak.
All right, let's get to that moment with Ellen Pompeo that everyone is talking about. She's trending right now. That's the cover of Net-a-Porter's annual Women in Television issue. They sat down with Ellen Pompeo, Gabrielle Union, Emma Roberts, and Gina Rodriguez for a photo shoot and interview.
Yeah, during the interview, they were talking about diversity within the industry, and Ellen took a moment to call it the magazine and point out the lack of diversity in the room amongst the staff and crew.
This day has been incredible, and there's a ton of women in the room. But I don't see enough color. And I didn't see enough color when I walked in the room today. And I had a meeting with the director of another endorsement project that I'm doing. I said, you know, when I show up on set, I would like to see the crew look like the world that I walk around in every day. And I think it's up to all productions to make sure that your crew looks like the world we see. As Caucasian people, it's our job. It's our task, it's our responsibility to make sure that we speak up in every single room we walk into, that this is not okay, and that we can all do better. It's our job, because we've created the problem.
It wasn't something that was lost on me. I did not have the bravery.
For sure.
To say it or call it.
That's why it's our job. That's why it's our job.
There's a part of me that felt lucky to be here.
100%, girl. 100%.
But I'd never would have thought to say it in this space because I don't want to appear ungrateful and the ungrateful brown person.
And that's why it is my job. That's why I say we bear the burden, because they don't feel comfortable to speak up. And I'm happy to take it on in any room at any time.
But it's hard. It's hard. If you go this route, it's hard. And you run the risk of losing your space.
That.
You know what I mean? Well, I mean,
I don't
her
need a
space is pretty solid.
I was going to say,
her space is solid.
Her space is different.
Bam.
Yeah, that's wild that they went there.
Yeah.
It's not often, you know, that you'll get someone speaking out like that. And from Ellen Pompeo's point of view, too. I love that continued on with Gabrielle Union talking about it as well.
And Gina Rodriguez, waving as well. But yeah, even people are talking about just Gabrielle Union's face. Yeah. They're like, oh, damn, she's going there.
Okay,
and that's the thing. I think you need those people that are in power. Like Ellen is looked at as this person, you know, she's making $20 million a year. And it's a very prestigious show that's been on forever. She has this powerful role. So I think she has to be the person. Well, for it to come from her, for her to point it out is a huge deal.
Like, personally speaking, if you're a person walking into a room where you're like the minority, there's no one like you in the room, you think it, you know, like Gabrielle Union said, you don't usually say it out loud. It's not like I walk into a room and go, hey, there's no Filipino people here at all, or whatever. Like, it doesn't cross my mind to actually bring that up until afterwards when I'm talking to other people about it, right? But it's cool that they did that. Wow.
Yeah, Nelson says, always good when someone speaks up about this. Paul says, very elegantly put. Paul says, real and raw.
I thought that was really cool. And I don't know, it's just neat to see it in real life. And I just thought it was very brave of Ellen Pompeo, and just what a great example. And sometimes I just wish this was highlighted more in the media, you know, these kind of events, these kind of actions. There's a lot of things in the chat that I missed. I know Judy Larkin from my league, I know this list isn't complete, but it's interesting that age is missing. Oh, good point. Ageism for sure. Ageism young and ageism old, right? Christy Swan, my president, I need to remember the opportunities given to me earlier in my life, the chances people were willing to take on me, and then offer that to others unlike me. Aww. Susan Allman, I'll bet someone who works here can help you with that. Oh, that's a good response. Thank you, Susan. Pat, Sometimes people will say, this is really hard, so I'll just say it. Then boldly say, whatever. I like the tip to work on and value relationship first before sharing the difficulty. Edna Early, she's DEI in St. Croix Valley. That was awesome. And it gives me hope that I can connect, be vulnerable, and work towards inclusion. I want to make this a better world. I want the world to be full of color. Exactly what you are saying. Cool. Okay, so now we're getting into the tricky business of identifying and responding to microaggressions. And so, like, here's some of the common thought processes or thoughts that we have when it's like you hear something that's off color, offensive, and then it's like, what do I do? Challenging thought number one, maybe there's got to be an explanation for their comment, right? Challenging thought number two, maybe I'm being petty or being too sensitive or missing something, and this is really not a big deal. Maybe I'm expecting too much and I should lower my standards. Challenging thought number three, if I don't respond, well, that has its own set of consequences. Challenging thought number four, it feels like I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't. Challenging thought number five, how would I respond? Challenging thought number six, well, I'm worried I'll lose my cool. Challenging thought number seven, what if it makes things worse? They might yell, react with violence, and or spread rumors about me. So this is adapted from a source, and these are different responses that you may use. And just so you know, all this is being recorded and will be put on the website tomorrow, along with a companion discussion guide for you to use in your local leagues in conjunction with this webinar. It'll have a whole different set of questions. And also, I will throw out there that if you want to share this with somebody and they need it translated in any language, we will do that for you on behalf of state. So we got to be DEI all the way, right? Or nothing. And so that's just one simple thing we can do. Okay. So first, do not feel pressure to respond to every incident. Rather, feel empowered to do so when you decide you should. I really like this. If either the issue, the relationship, or both are important to you, avoidance is not the best approach. Express yourself in a way that honors your care for the other party and assert yourself in a way that acknowledges your concern. So again, if either the relationship or the issue or both are important to you, avoidance is not the best approach. And I just thought that was really well put. Restate or rephrase. I think I heard you saying blank. Is that correct? Ask for clarification or for more information. Could you say more about what you mean by that? I'm wondering how you have come to think that. Separate intent from impact. Well, you probably didn't realize this, but when you blank, it was hurtful or offensive because blank. Instead, could you blank? Share your own process. I noticed that you blank. I used to say and do that too, but I learned blank. Express your feelings. When you blank, I felt or feel blank and would like you to blank. Challenge a stereotype. In my experience, blank. I think that's maybe a stereotype. I've learned that blank. Another way to look at it could be blank. Promote empathy. Ask how they would feel if someone said something like that about their group or their friend, partner, child. I know you don't like stereotypes about somebody in their group, but how do you think he or she feels when he or she hears those things about his group? How would you feel if someone said that or did that to your sister or girlfriend or brother or boyfriend? Mirror. Repeat what they just said or did. For example, where are you really from? Well, where are you really from? Can I touch your hair? Can I touch your hair? That's a common one with Black women and men where people ask to touch their hair. And back in the 80s, it wasn't just only the hair, it was the hair pick, if men or women wore the pick in their hair. And it's pretend you don't understand. I don't get it. Why is it funny? Use humor. I'm tired of point out what they have in common with the other person. So what's in it for them? Remind them of the rules or policies. So, I mean, this is a way that we can really think about this in our leagues, right? And so just like I started with community standards today or guidelines, that's something that you guys could incorporate in your local league. And then it's an easy way just to point back to that. Remember, this is in our code of conduct or our community agreements, right? Appeal to values and principles. Well, I know you really care about this. Acting in this way really undermines your intentions. Okay. So now we're going to take a little more time. I know it's like we're towards the end of this. We're going to just take 1 minute. And I really want you to stop and think about each of these. This year, I will foster a safe and warm and inclusive environment by, and you can read that on your own and just think about these or write them down for yourself. This is putting it into action. All right, 10 more seconds. Okay. So we're all in this together, resources for days. One thing I'd like to point out is our DEI resource database, or now we're calling it the resource menu. And this is a link on the landing page, the DEI landing page on our state website. It's a whole, I compiled a list of like over 500 resources for you, and they're sorted by topically and by medium within each topic. And so if you were to go to the left of like the Google Doc, there's like a square with lines in it. If you click it, it's indexed. And also it's a view only, so don't worry, you're not going to mess it up. Or you can go to edit and then under find and search the terms that you're looking for. And if you are interested in collating resources for your own local league, feel free to contact me and I can help you curate resources from that enormous list as a service to you that's specific to your local league and your needs. Because you guys know your league's the best. We have the Transformation Committee. Those are DEI members, the people who do DEI work in your local leagues and DEI leaders. And we meet once a month, or prospective members. So please join us. We meet once a month. There's no agenda. There are no minutes. It is a collaborative, confidential space where people share. They network. They share resources, they vent, all these things. And so, and some of them even plan programming together. And so, and even if you can sign up and come once a year and it's just really, it's for what you need. We have the Multicultural Adventures Committee, and we have a field trip. Basically, this has like field trips all around the state that are DEI related. The next one is December 10th. In Madison, at the Madison Contemporary Museum of Art. There's an Indigenous and art exhibit, and really she's pointing out the injustices towards the Indigenous communities through her art. And then there's another exhibit as well. It's guided, free, and a holiday capital tour. And we have we're planning one in the spring in the Menominee Nation, Dave Overstreet from the Milwaukee County League is an archaeologist there, and that'll be a hybrid event. But we are looking for people to join that committee and really just to plan 1 or 2 field trips a year. It's like 2 meetings per field trip usually. So you're welcome to join that. These are our board of directors statewide who are involved on the DEI committee or the Community Alliance Committee. The Harvard Implicit Association tests. These are tests that you can take to measure your own biases in a variety of mediums like age, race, gender, all sorts of things. And then there's other resources listed here. These are just different things that I really love in particular. And you can also take a picture of this with your cell phone. That's what I recommend too. It might be easier, or screenshot it. Okay.
I know some of you believe it's you against the world. You want me to believe that everyone is against you? How about proving somebody right? How about all those people who did support you, who did encourage you, who loved you enough to tell you the truth, loved you enough to be honest with you? They drove you, they paid for you, they fed you, they clothed you. You cheered for them, they cheered for you. They helped you in practice, they picked you up, they took you home. Who was on your squad? Who do you want to prove right now? If you are always trying to prove someone wrong, instead of proving someone right, that can't get you enough fuel for the long haul.
You have got to realize that doing everything by yourself is the quickest path to burnout. Talent wins games, but teamwork wins championships. Do you just want to win games, or do you want to win championships?
I hear you talking. I don't need anybody. I don't trust anybody. But when that is your mindset, when that is your mentality, anger is the motivation. Pain is the motivation. Then revenge is what's driving you. Revenge can't be what drives you. It's not a long-term play. Eventually, anger and revenge are proving someone wrong has its limits. Why? Because together we can.
But if you really want to go further, you've got to be willing to come out of isolation. Welcoming support is one of the best gifts that you can give yourself. Yes, be strong, but also give yourself permission to be human. Trying to build your vision on your own places you at a disadvantage. Even when I know that I can grind harder, even when I know that I can stay up later and get it done by myself. Yeah, you may be better at it, but don't underestimate the power of teamwork. Talent wins games, but teamwork wins championships. Did you hear that? Did you catch that? That is powerful.
You see, the isolation mindset is not healthy for you. This me against the world mindset is dangerous. In fact, I think this world is too busy for anyone to worry too much about you. This world is too selfish for people to be thinking too much about you. Why? Because they're thinking about themselves. But here is an idea. If you want more support, why not give it first? Everything you need in life must pass through another human's hands. I want to say that one more time so that you get it. Everything you need in life must pass through another human being's hands. That's why people are the most valuable resource on this earth. That's why you can't have this me against the world mentality, because you're going to block off your blessings. You're going to block off the people who have the resources. You see, God is trying to get things to you, but he has to use other humans. He has to use people in order to get it to you. Can I be clear? Can I be honest with you? The one thing might be holding you back is that you don't understand how important is it for you to understand people are here to be a resource for you. Everything you need in life is going to be given to you through another person. I believe success is a two-part process. Success, greatness, requires two things. We must get you right first. Can I ask you a question? Honestly, are you okay with correction? Are you okay with rebuke? Are you okay with someone telling you the truth? When someone tells you the truth, is that when they become your enemy? When someone tells you the truth, is that when you shut down? When someone tells you the truth, is that how you interpret it? That they are against you? They're not against you. They're for you because you can trust the wound of a friend. You can always trust the truth. Are you open to being coached? Are you coachable? Are you open to being taught? Are you teachable? Are you open to being mentored? I mean, have you ever been a mentee? Do you allow people to encourage you, influence you, and to have impact? These are the resources you may be running from, but I'm telling you to run to the truth. Run to the honest truth. Run to rebuke. Run to correction. Stop being easy on you. Stop being tough on you. But here is an idea. If you want more support, why not give it first? I mean, you want people supporting you. You're so focused on you. Can I ask you a real question? Here comes the truth. Don't run away. Here comes the honesty. Don't run away. Who do you support? Who are you encouraging? Who are you clapping for? Who are you lifting up? Who are you cheering for? Who are you rooting for? You got to use your energy the right way because the universe will give it back. Sometimes you got to pay it forward. And then you wait for the harvest to come your way. You need to give your support away freely. Why? Because together we can. I know you need more support, but so does your neighbor. I know you need support, but so does your friend. I know you need more support, but so does your brother, so does your sister, so does your friend. Let's work on you, then work on your squad. And the most important part of it is what you give, not what you take. Why? Because I need you, and you need me. And together, we can.
Listen, I have gotten to the point where I will not try to do everything on my own. I am so over trying to fight serious battles on my own. I am so over trying to build my business on my own. The only way to grow is to have someone tell you the truth. A talented and passionate person, that's great. But a talented and passionate team, now that's a force to be reckoned with. And I want you to understand that at some point, you're going to have to realize that you have taken yourself as far as you can. You don't have to wait until you get to your breaking point. You don't have to wait until you're at the point of being ready to give up. You can start building your support system now. You can start building your team now. You can develop your growth strategy now. And so I want you to know that you don't have to have all the answers. This is coming from a recovering perfectionist, okay? You don't have to have all the answers. That's the beauty of having the right people in your corner. You need at least one person in your corner who can see what you can't see. And as a matter of fact, I recommend that you position yourself around people who will pull the greatness out of you. Yes, that means stretching you. And when you hear someone spewing division, don't take part in that. Division is unfruitful. You can get so much more done when you're working in unity. So who are you connected to? And what are y'all going to do to make the world a better place? When you are going through a tough time or you're fighting a difficult battle, don't try to figure it all out on your own. Don't try to compete with the person who has been sent to support you. It's not a competition. The only person you need to be in competition with is the person you were yesterday.
That's a long one, but it kind of just ties. I felt like there's something for everyone in there. And it just kind of what I hope that you can capture, that we all can capture the power of our teams in the league and our individual committees within each local league, all the local league committees within their local league together, and then all of us regionally, and then all of us as a state. And so, and really that's what, it's not a competition. This is about our internal work, our internal journey, right? But it's also, you know, seeing others, supporting others, and just finding ways to lean on each other, but also work together as teams. So diversity is about all of us and about us having to figure out how to walk through this world together. Jacqueline Woods. And I know we're we're 3 minutes over, and that's the end of the presentation. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to forward the slide just for my contact information. I am available, and then we can go back to questions for whoever wants to stay on longer. I'm more than happy to stay. I am available all the time. And there's the references. You can take a screenshot or a photo, or you can watch a recording tomorrow. You know, this is one of the League of Women Voters logos: educate, advocate, empower, repeat. And that's kind of what I hope you captured a little bit of in this presentation. That is my email address. And since this will be on the website, you can email me on that. And my footer has my cell phone number. I am very responsive, and you can text or call me as well anytime. I have my notifications if I'm predisposed. And so I'd love to hear from you. You don't need to be in DEI to do that. It looks like there's some messages in the chat. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Susan Waldo Collectivo. She's in my league. Livy, oh, you guys are so sweet. Awesome. Okay, it looks, all you guys are so sweet. There are all the videos from the presentation are in this list for sure. And now for those of you who need to leave, good night. And then for those of you you'd like to stay, here we are on the question page. Anybody have questions for me? And it doesn't have to be about this presentation. It could be about, you know, your local league or a scenario, anything. Kathleen.
Yeah, I hope that the next time the state league decides to do some major state paid advertising, they ask you to look at that beforehand with a view toward DEI. I thought that the newspaper insert gave context to the count every vote, and I was happy to see that, but I was quite surprised by the representation of the League of Women Voters that went out to our whole community as being older white women, period, end.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I will definitely take that feedback back to staff for sure. And, you know, here's the thing with DEI, what's really cool is like, well, several things. I'm building up these training materials, building them out. And so I really want to start with what your needs are first. And so I'm traveling around the state. And I was just actually in Ripon on Tuesday. I was their keynote speaker. I've been to several leagues. 13 are signed up or in the works for me to speak. I have an unconscious bias training that is a little bit different. It's a little bit different. For boards, I have a companion one. For membership, I have one that is leading growing your local league for boards, and a companionship training, which is integrating into your local league. But I can develop more because I'm only 7 months into this position. So hit me up. And so, but where I was going with that, Kathleen, is like, you know, eventually, like we started, I participated in, I created a DEI guidelines for candidate forums. Molly Carmichael, communications, and I are going to come up with a DEI guidelines for comms in social media. And so eventually I'll be able to touch, DEI touches all the committees, right? And so that's a great point, and I will be sure to look into that. Thank you. Okay, Brigitte, remind me, Brigitte or Brigitte?
It's German, so it's Brigitte, but you may call me anything you would like to.
Oh, so Dorothy pronounces it correctly. Dorothy Sky, our board president. Brigitte.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay. This is, first of all, I want to say thank you for your presentation. It really makes me think and which way we have to go. And then I cannot help it, but I just thought about what I saw tonight in the news, that in Virginia, the education department, and you're talking to a retired teacher, so that really, hits. They have new proposed changes to their curriculum, which they want to get rid of anything that smells like diversity. Okay. So we're getting rid of diversity, inclusion, and obviously then equity. That is a very scary thing.
So this is happening in Wisconsin. I ran for school board in Mequon-Thiensville. Our school board race made the front page of the New York Times. And there is a group, I think it's called Family First. I think it's like a Family First something social studies curriculum that they're trying to put forth, something like that.
There's Moms for Liberty.
Oh yeah, Moms for Liberty. Look in there. So that is happening here in Wisconsin. And obviously this fully falls within our positions in the League of Women Voters. And so there is a place, if you guys wanted to create a group that looks into this and, like a committee, like you have a DEI committee, you're more than welcome to, as long as things fit within our positions. And I will tell you something else that's so interesting. Do you know that Janesville and Beloit, they share a DEI committee? So, I was like, oh, that's a thing. Because I'm learning about the league. I've only been in the league for a year. So I'm like, wait, what? And so, there's opportunities, you could kind of get, there are many of us educators in the league, and there's also many of us researchers in the league as well. So, that's a place where, if you wanted to start something between leagues that, I would be more than happy to collaborate with you to help you figure that out. But it is very, it's awful. It's just awful. It's revisionist and and hateful at its core. Yeah, I know this because a girl I ran against school board with, she's a part of it. So sorry. Anybody else? Oh, there's comments in the chat. Let me see if there's questions in there. Ah, you guys are so sweet. Aw. Anybody else have questions? Anybody else? If you're interested in joining any of these committees or finding out more about DEI, I'm more than happy to have a phone call or a Zoom with you. And I'm very informal, and like even my presentations are like a lot of video clips, because I I respond better to that. And it's like, people don't want to hear me speak for that long. I don't want to hear me speak for that long. Right. But it's like, you know, these committees like the Multicultural Adventures Committee and the others, you know, like they're informal. So people, you can't make like all the meetings. It's really not a big deal. Nobody's, you know, just do the best you can. And that's also another way to look at DEI too, is like, you know, look at the economy, what's happened, and like, how are people affording life, right? And so a lot of younger people or families, like husbands or wives or parents are taking on more jobs. And so, you know, like it's important to be flexible like that. Ruth, Mama Ruth. Ruth is a former board president of the Milwaukee County League. And she is one of my dearest friends and mentors, and she's on our state board. Ruth.
Hi.
Mama.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just wanted to share, and it goes back to one of the presentation comments. When they're talking about giving, if you need to receive something, then start by giving. And not to be, you know, they also stated in one of your other presentations, they stated, don't be quiet all the time. And that doesn't mean being rude or anything, but sometimes if you want people to feel free to get to know you, you kind of burst on the scene in a kind way. And the other thing that I know you know about me is I feel that the easiest way for me to receive a blessing or something that I need is by being a blessing or giving something someone else needs. And I've been doing this for decades and it works. It absolutely is part of who I am and it works. Third thing, I need people to understand what stress and anger and all the things that we've been going through do to a person. Physiologically, it is killing us as individuals because when we're constantly under stress, when we're constantly angry, when we're constantly hypervigilant, our bodies release a hormone called cortisol. And if you check even with your doctor, and I tell people, feel free to check me on what I'm saying, but if you check with your doctors, they will tell you that constantly having cortisol released because of your stress level and your anger level and your hypervigilance and all of the things that we have heard about, that can cause even your body to react in a very negative way, and it causes organs to become weaker. It just really attacks your body. And so I want people to understand that sometimes when you think that someone's doing to someone else, they're actually harming themselves even more. So those are the little tidbits that I have to offer. Take it for what it's worth. And I love the league, so that means I love you all.
Aw, Mama Ruth. Thank you for sharing.
No problem. You know that.
I am one of those cortisol victims, so I take that to heart. It's the stress management is so important. Anybody else? This is just the beginning, you know, and so I'm going to build some more trainings off of this, and you'll be receiving an evaluation form hopefully tomorrow. We'll email that to you. And I'll email, I guess in that email, also put all the resources like this recording, the companionship discussion guide, etc. And so, as with like, this will be a recording. We're not giving out the slides, so they're taken in a context, you know, but you are more than welcome to, add to the discussion questions and make it your own. So yeah, I hope this gave you guys some food for thought, just about really what diversity looks like. I just think of DEI work as just like, it's just loving people and seeing them. Like, like young people say now, they're like, I see you, I hear you. That's kind of what this means to me, and really learning about somebody, just beneath the surface, like who are they really, because you just can't tell from the outside. So yeah. I'm kind of like getting hypnotized by these question marks. I don't know about you. and it's almost my bedtime. So I'll take one last question and then we'll call it. But I mean, please do reach out. Like, please do. And also, so you not have to have a DEI committee with minutes, etc., to be in DEI work in your local league. It's not necessary. I know there's a lot of leagues that are, it's a lot just to get their board staffed so they can keep running. And so don't feel like that needs to be a whole committee. Even if you guys just do field trips, like you all do, like in the winter, you could do like a Netflix watch party, easy, and then have a discussion, or go whatever, go to a local museum exhibit and then, go out for coffee, something like that. And I'm here also to just help you brainstorm ideas. Also, your presidents will be getting this dashboard that I made for each local league. And what that is, it's like all the DEI surveys, the demographic surveys through all the years, just for your local league. So you can kind of see where you've been year to year, plus your census data, because like sometimes we don't know who is in our community. And I'm working hard with the Applied Populations Lab to look beyond race and age. I'm trying to look at like, if there's anything about like same-sex marriage statistics from census data, anybody like military service, if there's any, but like ways to see how many people are on like Medicaid, young people on Social Security, like just so you can understand the full demographics of your community. Does that make sense? Because sometimes we just go to, oh, Black, Asian, but there's so many other ways, as we learned today with intersectionality. Well, on that note, sleep well, ladies and gentlemen, and do take care of yourselves, like Ruth said. And it's a pleasure and an honor to serve you on state. And so just know I'm here to support you guys in any way. And like, again, like I basically develop all my training materials and resources and toolkits based off of your input and feedback. So thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone. Bye-bye.